Good morning, friends. So got a nice Monday going on here. We have a large new week opening gap, and I'm just watching how we took this sell side liquidity. We did not take this sell side liquidity on the NASDAQ. So I want to see if price wants to kind of move away from it. Maybe gravitate back towards the bottom of this new week opening gap as it's doing now. I want to wait for this high to be taken. Do we have a news driver? We have non-farm payroll this week. So it's non-farm payroll Friday, which means we will trade Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday only. We have manufacturing PMI coming out at 10 o'clock. So I'll be waiting until 10 to trade. But I will be watching this because right now we do have something that could be a nice 2022 model shaping up on the 5-minute. We have a sweep in liquidity on the 5-minute and the 15-minute on the higher time frames. So we have a longer term sweep of liquidity referencing this low over here on the 5 and the 15. We also have a short term morning sweep on this swing high for the 5-minute. So on the 5-minute, if we were to come down, take this liquidity, do a market structure shift above this high, that creates a fair value gap. It would constitute a 2022 model entry to the upside with probably that new week opening gap bottom being our target. I wouldn't take it just because we have that news coming out at 10, but I will be watching it. You could argue that it's already played out due to this fair value gap right here. I like to wait for the market structure shift before I enter things. So I'll be watching that. And it would probably be a fair value gap on the 1-minute that we'd have to wait for. We have this volume imbalance here, so we have the 9:30 open. Looks like we came down right to consequent encroachment of that wick. That's beautiful. Looks like we're taking this high, so just gonna watch. On the higher time frames, I was paying attention to specifically more like the daily. So ICT spoke about how he could see us retracing up into this fair value gap and taking this buy side. It doesn't have to, but he could see that happening. He said, I think his line in the sand was like this volume imbalance, but we made the low last week and retraced on Thursday, Friday. And we kind of dropped down Friday, gapped up into the new week opening gap. So I want to see, just paying attention here. I want to see, it might not happen today, but will this week move away from the new week opening gap or just kind of, chop around in the beginning? We have two really close to each other. I think if we took this low and closed below this low, we would definitely start to see some more downside. Okay, so on the 5-minute structure, we have that market structure shift. We didn't really get a fair value gap within this. Looks like one might be panning out right now. Yeah, so we do have this right here. That's not something I would take if we didn't have a 10 o'clock news. I would take that, but I'm going to wait for the 10 o'clock news before taking any of my trades. Opening up this morning, I didn't have too much of a bias. I didn't think anything was too obvious. I highlighted this fair value gap just because I've been trying to pay attention. Excuse me. I've been trying to pay attention to kind of what ICT has been explaining that his son has been doing. And his son's been, just kind of taking when there's like an obvious draw on liquidity on the 15 or the hourly, he said. So going into the morning, right before we took, so this sell side equates to this low. Before we took that, we were up here, and it was pretty obvious, that low, we were breaking aggressively below the new week opening gap. It wanted to target that liquidity if it wanted to go back up. Same with on the hourly. So that is an example of the obvious 15 or 1 hour low drawn liquidity ICT has been explaining his son's model. And then I didn't get on until like right here, so I saw this in hindsight. But you can see on the 5-minute, we came up on this swing high and took that 5-minute high. And then it broke lower aggressively on the 1-minute. So like this, I felt like could have been a fair value gap entry targeting. We had the sweep in opposing liquidity on the 5-minute. He said it could be 5 or 15, so I have it on the 5-minute. And then we broke lower aggressively on the 1-minute and returned into a fair value gap to deliver to that sell side liquidity. So I was just kind of watching that. Okay, so it looks like we're returning to the bottom of that new week opening gap. See how we play off of it so far. Again, I don't think anything's too obvious today. What the obvious thing would be is if we kind of reacted off of this new week opening gap bottom and sent it lower around the 10 o'clock hour. But if we got above this new week opening gap and spent some time in it, I would probably just sit on the sidelines. It's a fairly large new week opening gap, so I wouldn't really know what to expect. You can I'd consider this an order block. In the London session, it came up, took liquidity before sending it lower. So maybe I'd watch to see how it reacted off the bottom of this series of up-close candles, but that's nothing that I would like to take a trade off of. Yeah, so we're just watching. Again, so if New York is a continuation of London, then here's London in the 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock hour. We swept this liquidity. That was Sunday afternoon and Sunday night. So we swept that Sunday, those highs, and then broke lower. So if today is going to be a down close day on the daily, and London already swept some liquidity and sent it lower, then New York will be a continuation lower of London. If we were to continue lower, I would measure out the consequent encroachment of this wick. Why this wick? Because it's the longest wick. And then I'd go from there. But that's just kind of what I'm thinking right now. That's a lot will have to happen before we can anything transpires that we can act on. So just sitting on the hands, sitting on our hands. I learned that you can open up multiple demo accounts on TradingView. I think that's a new feature, because I remember a long time ago when I was doing demo, I think it was only one, so I think this is new. I was just testing it out. I was a little nervous because I didn't want to erase any of the account drawdown that we are in right now. The dollar this morning on the daily, I was noticing how it looked bullish on the daily, and we have a bullish draw. It's on a pretty hot streak, the dollar. I'm highlighting this breaker. I just want to see it's low, high, lower, low break. I want to see how price reacts off of it to try and gauge, our short-term draw on liquidity for the 10 o'clock hour. I looked over at NASDAQ and it was interesting. So I said earlier how NASDAQ didn't take that liquidity like ES did. And if you notice, so that means, it's stronger to the upside. And on the NASDAQ, we came all the way up almost to the top of our new week opening gap for NASDAQ. But on ES, we have barely come to the bottom of that new week opening gap. So it's interesting. I mean, if you're going to play to the downside, you want to play the weaker one. You're going to want to play ES. If you're going to want to play upside, in theory, you don't have to. That's the in theory, you'd play to the upside, the stronger one, which is the NASDAQ, which is interesting. NASDAQ, we have some higher levels up here that could serve some interest. We also have these very, very relative equal highs. We got 1, 2, 3. I'd wait until we get above that new week opening gap high to start thinking about anything above it. But I think I'm going to stick to ES this morning. And yeah, because NASDAQ was so bullish, I kind of drew out this breaker pattern on ES just to gauge, just to see if we respect it. If we respect it to the upside, then I will have a harder time believing that we're going to go down for that 10 a.m. silver bullet. By default, I'm probably going to go down just because I will want to play a continuation of the London session. But if we respect this breaker, then I will not want to go down. And it's doing a pretty decent job right now. You can see we're wicking into it. Bodies are all closing above it. It's pretty nicely. But I would actually be happy if we broke through it because I would have a lot more confidence to the downside. Again, I would be looking for a close below that breaker. I think ICT did a example trading a breaker last week, and he saw it, wick even below it, and then but the body closed on the high end of it, so like wicked really low under it. Then the body it snatched up and closed up to the top range, and he was like, "That's permissible." So it's all about the body closes. If you notice right here on the 5 minute, it's probably also on the 15 minute. This swing high right here is 43.2850. This high is 43.2875. So we went over it by a tick, and now we're going to the downside. See what Nasdaq's doing. I want Nasdaq to be kind of heavy because the markets are looking a little disjointed right now. Simply on the fact that Nasdaq didn't take that low and then took all these highs, and then ES did take that low and didn't take these highs, which makes sense. Nasdaq would have a more aggressive retracement. Okay, yeah. I'm going to take this breaker off now because it served its purpose. Okay, so I am liking downside price action for this silver bullet. I'm going to start mapping out some fair value gaps I could see. Remember, we have this news at 10, so you have to be wary of that. I'm also a little concerned that the Nasdaq is so far off from its high. So far off from its low. I do think, if we just had a difference in taking of the low, then you could call it more of a crack in correlation. But after watching how it's acted after the 9:30 open, I do think they are a little disjointed. So they're not moving perfectly in tandem, which means probabilities aren't super high. That's interesting. See that? If we came up above this high and these up close candles didn't hold off downward price, then I'd probably switch my narrative. ES returning to that fair value gap. I'm actually, I think I'm liking upside more. Let's see how the news reacts. Let's wait. If you notice, I mapped out that breaker and I kind of took it off on the 1 minute close. But if you watch the 5 minute, we're actually respecting it. So if you draw a PD array based off of a specific time frame, you should wait. That was wrong of me. 1 minute close below it, and I just took it off when I should have waited for the 5 minute close. So we have the low, high, lower, low with the break. This structure. See on the 5 minute we wicked down, and now on the 5 minute we opened, wick to the bottom of that. Yeah, upside price action is looking a lot more. I think it's a lot more favorable. Less than a minute, going into 10. Yeah, I'm really liking the way price is shaping up to the upside. Even though we have a rising dollar. Whoa. Okay. Let's see how this candle prints. Respecting the breaker on the 5 minute. Came back down. Looks like an immediate rebound. Well, not immediate, but a rebalance of that fair value gap. We have a drop in dollar. Drop in dollar. Wow, that's really bullish candle. I was hoping to use this, the bottom of this new week opening gap, as a target. My plan was not to get a candle this large, and then, you know, maybe just like one that's a little strong, not as strong, create a fair value gap, and then enter in on that fair value gap, targeting this new week opening gap low. But that candle is so bullish. Let's see. May run away. May just want to leave that open. It's looking very strong to the upside. Oh, I'm just seeing on the economic calendar right now that Fed Powell speaks at 11 a.m. today. Didn't even notice that. 11 a.m. He's speaking all over the place. Spoke last week. And he spoke the week before at the FOMC press conference. He's on a once a week schedule now. Fucker. Yeah, it's the third week in a row. That motherfucker's gonna be speaking. Let's see what the NASDAQ did. NASDAQ pushed. Yes, looks like it pushed even more actually. Dang. So knowing that Powell's speaking at 11, that's interesting. Makes me not want to trade this morning session. Even though the price action's been nice. I just didn't want to jump ahead until 10 a.m. And now that I know he's speaking at 11, I also don't want to jump ahead of that. Let's keep watching. Something that I'm definitely trying to work on. Didn't trade that much last week. If you noticed, I didn't live stream. I think I just live streamed Monday. But I've definitely been feeling or been struggling with the added element of streaming my trading. I think it's definitely kind of throwing me off. Last week I streamed Monday, but then I kind of spent the rest of the week just tape reading. I took a few trades on another account, not this account, just to kind of like, get the juices flowing, just like read price and trade outside of live streaming. And one thing I realized was I was like, oh wow, it's a lot more relaxing to not live stream and do it. I think I've been struggling with the fact that, I might see a few people watching and then I feel like I should do something, because if they watch and I don't do anything, then that's not favorable. But then I had to remind myself that, the point of this channel isn't a signal service. It's not to signal trades live. I'm trying to document something specific, which I also realized I don't have to live stream for. I could actually kind of do the whole goal I have for the channel without live streaming, which I guess I didn't really think it through too much, that I was like, oh, that is an option. But I started with the live streaming, so I'm going to try and stick through with the live streaming, and maybe it doesn't work out. We are using the top step bottom line limit because I started this with 150,000 at the bottom. I think their max loss is 4,500, so we got a ways away until 4,500. So if we hit that, I'll reconsider whether I do what I'm trying to do with this channel via live streaming. But until that, I'll keep trading. I think the mindset I'm trying to move forward with is, to kind of ignore the fact that I'm live streaming, which probably won't be super enticing for anybody watching the live stream, but I'm sorry. That's just kind of how I trade, and it'll probably involve a lot less talking, a lot less trades. But I think what I'm trying to construct on this channel is something a little more important than just catering to a live streaming audience. Maybe further down the line, if I get a little more comfortable with the whole live streaming thing, I'll shift gears to that. But right now, I'm just trying to kind of document something on the channel. And I started by doing that by live streaming, so I'm going to continue doing that. I don't need to live stream for it. So, news came out, market dollar dumped and market pumped real quick, but the dollar is now pumping upwards, which makes sense, I guess, because I think the manufacturing numbers came out good, so that would mean a stronger dollar. We shouldn't really cater our bias based off of the economic data. We should really just focus our bias on the structure of price. But I think that stuff's kind of interesting, so thought I'd point it out. We swept these equal highs for ES, which is also tapping into this 15-minute fair value gap. Seems like on the 15-minute we are not closing above the fair value, the new week opening gap low. We'll continue to monitor that. I would say we were going up if the dollar wasn't rising. So I guess the fact that I'm saying that out loud probably means that it's low probability conditions. Like we had a good open. We had a decent open. But, you know, with Powell speaking at 11, we could honestly just fucking chop wood until then, which I wouldn't be surprised. I feel like that's usually what happens the closer you get to him speaking. Is the market just waits for it. So this was probably, I think I've definitely seen this and now said it on live enough times where I'm pretty confident that's what's going to happen. We had the reaction on the open, so we took some liquidity, ran up on the open, came back down. Reacted off the news, but I think, you know, these are all kind of like this is news driver related. This is just, you know, the opening volatility. I think between now and 11, we're not gonna do too much. The dollar's rising, and you know, the dollar's rising, and ES isn't dropping. We're still making higher highs and higher lows. NASDAQ is looking bullish as all hell. It's working its way above its new week opening gap. I think the market today is that the markets are a little disjointed. And you know, I think going back to kind of what I was saying about feeling pressured now that I'm live streaming, this is an example of something where I would kind of just walk away from my computer if I wasn't live streaming. But since I feel like I've, you know, started the stream and committed to anybody who's watching, I feel the need to sit, watch, and possibly take a trade. But then I think that's what kind of induced a lot of my losing streak the past last week. It was, you know, just the fact that I'm streaming is kind of making me do things that I normally wouldn't do in my everyday trading. So I'll stick around here and watch price. I think, you know, getting back to my roots, something that I believe in is to build a lot of discipline in trading is to watch price and not take a trade. Like, it's one thing to build discipline and by like not trading, because I know at the beginning, when I first started trading, you know, like you kind of feel anxious not being at the charts, or like if you're not checking in on them all day, you feel like you're missing out. And then it's one level of discipline to kind of be able to actively decide not to look at the charts because you're not interested in them. And then it's another level of discipline, like the top level, is to just watch and not do anything. So I'm going to get back to practicing that. I noticed I was kind of looking back on my journal and just contemplating on like how my trading has been on this losing streak, and a lot, like there was like a decent amount of days where I was like, it's pretty low probability conditions, and then I just like traded it anyways and lost. And yeah, I think I was getting too caught up in this whole streaming aspect, which sucks for anybody who's trying to watch it as a stream. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be catering to that. But I think the bigger picture will be more rewarding, and the results will eventually start to speak for themselves. Yeah, so we got the dollar rising a lot. ES is kind of melting its way down. NASDAQ is rising. Yeah, that's the dollar. NASDAQ still melting down, but it's just looking a lot more bullish than ES. Yeah, I wouldn't trade. Let's look at the Dow. Oh god. I mean, I stopped looking at the Dow because it was never really. So the Dow made its lower low. It's an old. Dow made a lower low like ES. Came up. It wasn't able to take these highs like NASDAQ did immediately, and ES eventually got around to it. Dow didn't even make a higher high right here. Yeah, so opening bell, drop. We have this higher high on NASDAQ and S&P, not a higher high on the Dow. The markets are just looking a little out of sync. This big purple gap, or a big purple area, is a fair value gap volume imbalance on the daily, which ICT has been talking a lot about in his recaps. You can see the daily bodies are respecting it well. So I think once we get a body close on the daily below this zone, then this sell side and this fair value gap will be the next target. But until we get a close on that, we won't focus too much on this. I won't focus too much on this. Looked into a fair value gap on the 1 hour, came back down. Yeah, ES is back to looking pretty bearish. Let's see, what could we be trading? I guess, this was a fair value gap you could have traded. I guess part of me starting to wonder, so when we know it's going to be like a scalping, choppy market, is that when we should start to engage kind of the model that ICT gave his son, where it's like you take out a 5-minute high and then reverse? So like if ICT's son was trading, he could have targeted these 15-minute lows. Nah, nothing crazy. Nothing that stands out too impressively. Yeah, I wouldn't have said taking that and riding it to the bottom would be a super high probability. Would have been more of a guess. You wouldn't have had too much behind that. So we came down back to that breaker, came down, shot back up. Yeah, again, just very much kind of sideways, as expected for Powell. Chopping wood, chopping wood. Look at NASDAQ. Yeah, NASDAQ was a little more tradable. But again, one thing I think, one of the downsides of this model is it doesn't give you a whole lot of flexibility. I mean, if you're thinking about, okay, the silver bullet model, we're going to have like a strict model. It's between 10 and 11. So we wouldn't have been allowed to take a trade on the S&P until this. We knew at that point, we knew Powell was speaking at 11. So what are we going to do? We had come up, we hit the bottom of the new week opening gap, closed above it a little bit on the 5 minute, Then we retraced, and it's kind of like the next, yeah, the fair value gap there. But like, are you going to take that? Especially with the NASDAQ. I wouldn't have wanted to take that. Is it even a fair value gap? I think it is. Yeah, but like, you're going to take that. And what's your draw on liquidity? Your draw on liquidity is, I guess the first area is the breaker. And then these lows, didn't even get to the lows. It delivered 5 handles. Let's see. Yeah, it delivered 5 handles, and we came up and touched it again. But again, you're not gonna, I wouldn't personally think it would be smart to enter here after watching it react off this breaker. I mean, even on the 5-minute, we're still respecting it. You know, it might give eventually to the downside with the rising dollar, but that's not me. It's not me. The draw isn't, see, like, you can outline both sides right now. You can argue, okay, yeah, we came up, took this 5-minute high, didn't close above, well, we did close above the low of this new week opening gap, and then you broke back down. So like, you can argue a downside, you can draw out a downside case, but then there's also a really strong upside case. It's like, we took this liquidity, we swapped this liquidity, didn't do it on the NASDAQ, and the NASDAQ pumped up higher. We came up, dropped down, respected this breaker, closed above the bottom of this new week opening gap. Like, that's a pretty strong scenario for some upside price action too. And I think something that I definitely, one of the mistakes I made in this losing streak has been trying to trade when you can outline both sides of the market for this specific model. Because like, if you really want to have a high hit rate, which I was doing prior to live streaming, when it's like this, you walk away. You don't even look at it. It's just like, I can outline both sides. I don't know which one it is. I'm gonna walk away. ICT's also said it, like, it should be blatantly like one-sided for you to be high probability. And there are times, like, if you do this long enough, if you show up and look at the market every day long enough, there will be scenarios where it's just like, that is so obvious. Like, it's so obvious this is going to happen. It's so one-sided. And we got to get back to trading that, especially live on the channel, or in this scenario, in this series that I'm trying to do. Because I strayed away from that, trying to make sure I take a trade every live stream. Yeah, we got the dollar dropping. Not making any new structure though, just retracing a little. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of this until Powell speaks at 11. And then the thing is, you know, after 11, like, we're technically outside of our model. And you, like, in theory, you could trade outside of it, but for this channel, I want this channel to be very specific about the silver bullet windows. Okay, I'm actually gonna log off. I don't think there's any benefit of. I already know that I'm not trading until 11. I've already said that I'm not gonna cater too much and narrate too much anymore in the streams, so I don't think there's too much value in staying on. I will be on in the afternoon though. I'm excited for that. So enjoy your morning.